And now, from 12 Studios, this is News 12 Now.
Good afternoon, Texoma. Today is Tuesday, March 18th. Welcome to News 12 Now. I'm Kylie Dudman. Israel shattered the ceasefire with Gaza overnight, launching the first major airstrike since the pause in fighting. The Hamas-run health ministry says more than 4,000 people were killed. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered the strike, saying Hamas has repeatedly refused to release the remaining 59 hostages. CBS's Rami Inconcinio reports from Tel Aviv.
Israel unleashed dozens of airstrikes up and down the Gaza Strip, breaking the fragile ceasefire, which had barely lasted 2 months, causing hospitals and morgues to overflow once again after more than 17 months of war. As morning came, Gazans sat stunned amid the dead after the terror of the night, final moments with loved ones lost in silent grief. This father held his dead daughter in one last embrace. "We were sleeping, and the airstrike woke us up," said Mohammed. "We kept searching for her, and praise to God, we pulled her body from under the rubble." The Israeli government blamed Hamas for a breakdown in negotiations to free hostages and warned more strikes on alleged terror targets are to come.
Let me be very clear. Israel will not stop until all of our hostages are back home.
In Tel Aviv's Hostage Square, many wonder what the collapsed ceasefire will mean for dozens of hostages still being held.
It puts our hostages in danger.
Israel's defense minister warned, quote, "The gates of hell will open if Hamas does not release all of their captives." And in response, Hamas is blaming Israel for breaking the original ceasefire agreement from January. Hamas also says this return to war amounts to a death sentence for the remaining hostages. Rami Innocencio, CBS News, Tel Aviv.
The White House said it had been consulted about Israel's strikes on Gaza and voiced support for the actions. The journey back to Earth begins for 2 astronauts who were stuck in space for 9 months. Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams said their goodbyes to the International Space Station early this morning and boarded a SpaceX capsule alongside 1 astronaut and a cosmonaut. Both astronauts were stranded on the ISS since June 5th after issues with Boeing's new Starliner crew capsule. Multiple delays turned into 2-week stay into a lengthy visit. Wilmore and Williams are expected to splash down early this evening in the Gulf of Mexico after a 17-hour voyage, weather permitting.
And speaking of the weather, at least here in Texoma, it is windy out there once again. We've been talking about how the wind was going to crank up today. It was pretty breezy this morning, but now we've got some solid sustained winds anywhere from about 10 to 25 out there, almost pushing 30 actually in some spots. While not like Friday, it is still a very annoying wind, to say the least, and it could cause some isolated issues out there, considering that we are still seeing some gusts to near 40 at times. Temperatures this afternoon, not too bad either. We are in the 70s, and that relative humidity is low too, so that's why we're talking fire danger today in particular. But we do have a cold front on the way tonight that does shake things up through the rest of the week, primarily in the temperature department. And then that actually leads us to a beautiful weekend with some spotty storm chances. We're going to talk about it all coming up in your full forecast in a little bit, but back to you, Kylie.
All right, thank you, Brian. Well, speaking of wildfire danger, 4 people are dead and at least 200 others are injured in Oklahoma wildfires. Now, that's from the Oklahoma Department of Emergency Management's updated numbers. Fires are still going following Friday's outbreak of blazes in the state, with rural terrain, high winds, and low humidity making fighting the fires difficult. 12 counties remain in a state of emergency. And for nearly 4 years, Texas medical officials have warned that the state's ban on abortions is too vague when the woman's life is at risk. Now, state Republicans are looking to revisit the law. Governor Greg Abbott and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick both say they're on board to carve out explicitity when a doctor can provide an abortion. Now, this bill from the very author of the original abortion ban purports to do that. Michael Anderson looks at the big questions arising. Do doctors agree?
Governor Greg Abbott and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick say they're both on board to carve out exactly when a doctor is explicitly allowed to provide a medical exemption to the abortion ban. This new bill from the very author of the original abortion ban purports to do just that. The question arising, are Texas doctors on board? Texas's divisive ban on abortions, authored by Senator Brian Hughes, was passed nearly 4 years ago. Since then, Hughes and his allies have said the bill is clear enough, and doctors should know when they can and can't give abortions. Now, he's walking back on that.
Public opinion in the state's abortion laws are currently in conflict. It's also the case that the real practical implications of the state's laws have created serious concerns, I think, for elected leadership and even for people who want to see abortion access limited.
Senator Hughes' Senate Bill 31 attempts to carve out exemptions for doctors on exactly when they can have a medical exemption and perform an abortion. For instance, it walks back on the use of the phrase life-threatening and instead permits an abortion when pregnancy could result in the pregnant female's death or substantial impairment of a major bodily function. Dr. Zeke Silva is a radiologist, and he chairs the Council on Legislation at the Texas Medical Association.
Texas is a tremendous place to practice medicine, and our physicians are committed to caring for the patients in this state, and this law will help give comfort to our OB-GYN physicians, so hopefully they themselves will feel more comfortable practicing in Texas.
Last year, ProPublica reported on at least 3 women who died after they did not receive life-saving abortions. They reported last month that sepsis rates have gone up since the abortion ban took effect. Some are asking, is this legislation too late?
We never want to see a negative outcome. We never want to see anything affecting the woman's life or her future bodily function, to use the language in the law itself. And whatever we can do to further that, that is our commitment.
With as high profile of legislation as this, it's very unlikely that this bill is going to make it through the legislative session to the end virtually unscathed. As such, the text of this bill is very unlikely going to be the one at the end of the session, if one makes it out of the session at all. From outside the Texas State Capitol, Michael Atkinson, CBS Austin News.
A Virginia judge has ruled against a cancer survivor who is trying to obtain her frozen human embryos. Honeyline Heidemann of Falls Church has been divorced for years. After a cancer battle left her infertile, she sued to get the embryos from the facility where she and her ex-husband left them. She said they were her last chance to having another biological child, but the judge said that because of the unique nature of human embryos, they cannot be equally divided or considered as property, and it should be up to lawmakers to clarify the Virginia code. A wartime law known as the Alien Enemies Act is getting a lot of attention after President Donald Trump invoked it for the first time since World War II. The law makes it easier to detain and remove non-citizens staging a, quote, invasion or predatory insurgent of the U.S. Trump used it to deport hundreds of alleged gang members to El Salvador over the weekend. But as Fox's Rebecca Castor reports, an intense legal battle is already underway.
Dramatic video shows hundreds of alleged migrant criminals arriving in El Salvador after being deported from the U.S. The country's president says the group included 238 members of the violent Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua and 23 MS-13 members. He's agreed to hold them in El Salvador's notorious mega prison, built specifically for gang members.
These were bad people. That was a bad group of, as I say, hombres.
President Donald Trump used a wartime law known as the Alien Enemies Act to quickly deport the alleged gang members. It was last used in 1941 to detain Japanese, German, and Italian immigrants during World War II.
Well, this is a time of war because Biden allowed millions of people, many of them criminals, many of them at the highest level.
This all happened too fast for a federal judge who ordered an immediate stop to deportations under the act so he could hear arguments from both sides.
There's a reason why it's been limited in its application. Those circumstances do not appear to exist right now.
The White House is being accused of ignoring the court order, but officials insist the plane was already over international waters when the judge issued his ruling.
We did what we had to do, remove terrorists, significant public safety threats from the United States.
The Trump administration is paying El Salvador $6 million to hold the deported migrants for 1 year. In Washington, Rebecca Castor, Fox News.
Thank you for watching today's News 12 Now. Make sure to subscribe so you find out why Texoma turns to us. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook, where you'll see more social media exclusive content. Want more News 12 now? Watch us live every weekday through the KXII app on your phone or TV and through our website.